Good day everyone, we are Group 5 and we're here to continue the discussion of the report last time, which is the origin and nature of physical risk.
Risk associated with other chemical contaminants. Apart from residues of plant protection products, many other chemical products can contaminate food, some such as dioxin, PCBs, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons or PAH, come from air pollution. They are either natural in origin like forests, fires, volcanic ash, or result from human activity. So why are chemical in our food? Well, all food and living matter, including our own bodies, are made up of chemical. Ang mga sustansya sa ating pagkain ay binubuo ng mga carbohydrates, protein, fat, and fiber. And the whole host of other elements these compound together give us a balanced diet and a pleasurable eating experience that we all enjoy. So how is food contaminated? Food can be contaminated any stage in the food chain. Contamination can occur in the naturally occurring product. It can be introduced by farming methods or on the industrial scale during processing. Contamination can also be introduced during the distribution of our food for sales, or it can be introduced on the plate when the food is ready for consumption. This can be in our own home or in restaurant and bars where food is served. What are contaminants? Contaminants are substance compound or mixture of compounds with toxicological properties, meaning ito ay maaari silang magdulot ng masamang epekto sa kalusugan sa mga tao o hayop. Into two main categories, the naturally occurring contaminants or the man-made contaminants. Kung titignan natin ang mga natural na contaminants at iniisip natin ang tungkol sa mga halaman, for example is yung green leafy vegetables. Ito ay gumagawa ng nitrates at pag masyadong maraming nitrates ay maaari itong magkaroon ng masamang epekto sa mga tao o hayop. And also yung fungi. Nagproproduce din ito ng toxins or lason. Ang natural toxin na fungi ay tinatawag na mycotoxin at sila ay nakakahawa sa mga pananim tulad ng mga cereal. Looking at the man-made contaminants. Residues can be such thing as the residues of pesticide left on the crops from spraying or this from veterinary medicine used to treat animals when the farmers are raising them. Also, the residues of food contact material can migrate into our food products. The unwanted byproducts of processing, for example, is acrylamide, which is formed in starchy foods when they are cooked at high temperatures. This process, of course, occurs both in home and in the industrial process. Pollutants, as a result of man's activity, are in the environment in soil, water, and in the atmosphere, and can contaminate our food. Such pollutants as dioxins and the brominated flame. Retardants tend to accumulate in the fat of animals and in fish, such as oily fish. And we also have metals. Metals, of course, are naturally occurring, pero may posibilidad na pumasok sa ating mga pagkain dahil sa human activity, tulad ng tambutso ng sasakyan o usok ng industriya na nakakahawa sa kapaligiran. The following are a few examples of some of the most frequently observed chemical contaminants and their source of contamination. Tulad ng prutas at gulay, ito ay maaaring ma-expose sa contamination mula sa mga hydrocarbon, lubricant at iba't ibang uri ng langis mula sa makinarya na ginagamit para sa cultivation and sorting operations. Ang prutas at gulay ay maaaring maglaman ng labis na konsentrasyon ng nitrates like labis na paggamit ng mga pataba ng nitrates o mga organic fat. Halimbawa na lang is yung fractioning application at mga organic conditioner ng lupa. Ito ay kailangan para maiwasan ang pagkakaroon ng mga natitirang konsentrasyon ng kanilang mga produkto sa pag-aani. Biocides used to combat pests, insect, rodents must be authorized for this use or avoid products intended for agricultural use. They must never be allowed to come into direct contact with food products. Insecticide treatments must therefore be applied when the packhouse is empty. Bait used to trap rodents must be placed in closed container space on the ground to avoid all contact. Biocides product ay ginagamit upang protektahan ng mga tao at hayop. Napapanatili nito ang mga kalakal and pinipigilan nito yung mga peste tulad ng insect or rodents. And kinokontrol nito yung mga virus, bacteria, and fungi sa pamamagitan ng chemical or biological actions. For examples ay ang mga disinfectant, wood preservatives, and insect repellents. Karaniwan ng isang biocides product ay ang pinaghalong chemical at kasama na dito ang active substance. The active substance has the controlling effect on the harmful organism. The active substance could be created when the product is used, either from mixing the product with another chemical or reaction with the air or moisture. This is called in situ generations. This is still covered by law, even if no products are supplied and the biocide is generated from everyday things. For example, kapag ang isang makina ay gumagawa ng ozone mula sa oxygen sa hangin, ay upang magamit bilang isang disinfectant. Ang bawat taong gumagamit ng biocides ay may pananagutan sa paggamit ng mga ito ng tama, because this guidance is to help you use, store, and dispose of biocides safely. Packaging material. Ito ay tulad ng paggamit ng tinta sa pagprint ng informasyon. Maaaring mahawahan ang produkto sa pamamagitan ng paglipat. For example, is 4-methyl-benzopinan from printed cardboard packaging migrated into mostly containing chocolate chips. This substance is a photoinitiator used in UV inks and coatings for package printing. The components of inks vary in such as aluminum. In this incident, the 4-methyl-benzopinan migrated into mostly through the external cardboard packaging and plastic packaging. The nature of the packaging and materials that come into contact with food is therefore strictly regulated on the basis of a risk assessment. Cleaning agents, soaps, detergents used in a packing station must be carefully selected. They leave an invisible film on surface that can come into contact with products during sorting and packing. They must be stored in separate premises at the packaging station. Cleaning operations must precede and or follow sorting and packing operations. Ang mga produkto na panglinis ay mahalagang papel sa ating pang-araw-araw na buhay sa ating bahay, sa paaralan, at sa opisina. Sa pamamagitan ng ligtas na epektibong pag-alis ng mga lupa, mikrobyo, at iba pang mga contaminant, pinipigilan nila ang pagkalat ng mga nakakahawang sakit at kinokontrol nito ang mga allergens, tulad ng alikabok at amag, na tumutulong sa atin na manatiling malusog ang ating katawan. Ang mga produktong panlinis ay nagbibigay daan din sa atin ng pangalagaan ng ating mga tahanan at ari-arian. Ang mga chemical na ginagamit para sa paglilinis at paglilinis ng mga produkto tulad ng panlaba, pampaputi, mga produktong panghugas ng pinggan at iba pang panglinis sa bahay ay nakakatulong na mapabuti ang kausayan sa paglilinis. Ang chlorinated cleaning products ay maaaring makatulong na maprotektahan laban sa panahong paglaganap ng trangkaso at yugto ng sakit na dulot ng pagkain. Ang mga daycare, center, hospital, restaurant, at iba pang public facilities ay umaasa sa mga katangian ng disinfectant na mga panlinis na nakabate sa chlorine upang mapanatiling walang mikrobyo ang kapaligiran. Meron bang mga nakakalason na chemical sa mga produktong panlinis? Anumang chemical kahit na tubig o oxygen ay maaaring nakakalason kung masyadong marami ang natutunaw o nasipsip sa katawan. Ang toxicity ng isang particular na substance ay nakasalalay sa iba't ibang kadahilanan kabilang ang kung gaano karami ng substance ang nalantad sa isang tao at kung gaano ito katagal. Bagamat ligtas at mabisa ang mga produktong panlinis, pero dapat itong hawakan ng naangkop upang maprotektahan ang kalusugan ng mga mamimili at ng kanilang pamilya. Dapat sundin natin o yung mga gumagamit ang lahat ng ligtas na tagubilin sa paghawak sa label ng isang produkto bago gumamit ng partikular na produktong panlinis.
Risk from allergies. Most individuals eat a wide variety of food without running the slightest risk for a small percentage. Risk from allergies. Maaring kapag kumakain ka ng isang putahe na hindi angkop sa iyong katawan, ay magkakaroon ka ng allergy. Ngunit ito ay hindi simpleng sakit lamang na bigla na lamang nawawala. Ang iba dito ay nakakahawa at nakakamatay, kaya dapat mag-ingat sa pagkain kinakain natin. Trigger an allergy. A set of reaction by the organism, immune system or contact, ingestion, or even inhalation in the case of food allergen. The allergen provokes a chain reaction in the immune system that results in the release of antibodies. Triggers allergy ay naasaang lumalabas ito kapag may nakain tayong hindi angkop sa ating pangangatawan. Maaaring lumabas ito mga segundo o minuto ang nakalipas. Maaaring simpleng pagkain mo ng pagkain na di sang-ayon sa iyong katawan ay maaari mo rin itong ikamatay. Avoid consuming foods containing the substance that can cause more or less serious disorders. Avoid consuming foods. Ang pagkain ay nabibigay sa atin ng lakas, pero dapat ay maaaring balanse ang ating kinakain sa araw-araw para malakas ang ating pangatawan. Maaaring iba sa atin ay mahilig sa mga tamis na pagkain kaya't kinakailangan nito ay limitado lamang. Maaari ring makasama rin ito sa ating katawan, lalo na kapag sobra. Kaya maaaring iwasan natin ang ibang pagkain lalo na't hindi ito masustansya sa ating katawan. Labeling is mandatory. For any product containing allergens in the label must indicate the absence of any allergens. The ingredients must be shown on the label in the list of ingredients with a due reference to the name of the allergens. For example, ang mga taong allergy sa pagkain ay dapat tingnan o basahin muna ng mga label. Dapat tukuyin mga label ng pagkain na pinagkukunan ng mga pangunahing sangkap upang maiwasan ng mga tao ang mga ayaw at gusto nila. Soy lecithin is a food additive that comes from several sources. One of them being soy, karaniwang ginagamit bilang isang emulsifier o lubricant kapag dinadagdag ito sa pagkain. Ngunit ginagamit din ito bilang isang antioxidant o pampalasa na tinaguri ang pagkain. Evaluate the risk of source contamination. Cross-contamination is dangerous as it can easily lead to food poisoning, an illness caused by consuming harmful bacteria such as Salmonella. And cross-contamination is the physical movement or transfer of harmful bacteria from one person, object or place to another. Preventing cross-contamination is a key factor in preventing novel foods, since some groups of consumers can show unexpected sensitivity to such products. Flavorings are substances that are added to food or drink to give it a particular taste. What does flavorings mean in food? Flavorings are substances used to important taste or smells good. Emerging risk. Emerging risk is a new or unforeseen risk that we haven't yet contemplated. This is a risk that should be on our radar but is not, and its potential for harm or loss is not fully known. Ito ay ang mga hindi inaasahang panganib or aksidente na hindi natin inaakalang pwede palang mangyari. And its potential for loss is not fully known or hindi pa nalalaman dahil siguro wala ring sapat na informasyon tungkol dito and hindi pinaglalaanan ng sapat na oras upang malaman at maintindihan kung bakit nga ba may ganoong pangyayari or insidente. Definition of the concept of emerging risk. According to EFSA, or the European Food Safety Authority, year 2006, an emerging risk is a problem that may pose a risk to the food chain in the future. In Europe, the EFSA is obliged by Article 34 of Regulation EC number 178 of 2002 to establish monitoring procedures to systematically search for collate, and analyze information and data with a view to identification of emerging food risk. Emerging risk projects have been organized and international networks of experts and information systems have been set up on this topic. The European Commission's RASFF or Rapid Alert System of Food and Feed celebrated its 30th anniversary in year 2009. Its annual report and the nature of the alert messages issued each year give an overview of the emergence of new forms of risk. And there are three enclosed here that is related to emerging health risks, and these are the significant exposure to a hazard not recognized previously as relevant in the context of food chain safety. Second is the higher exposure to a known hazard or referred to as a re-emerging risk. And lastly is the increased sensitivity of the population to a known hazard. But let's focus first on the significant exposure to a hazard not recognized previously. In terms of progress of science and knowledge, the regulation EC number 178 of 2002, laying down on the general principle and requirements of food law, establishing the European Food Safety Authority, and laying down procedures in matters of food safety. This regulation ay para sa batas ng pagkain upang protektahan ang kalusugan ng mga tao at interes ng mga mamimili. It applies to all stages of production, processing, and distribution of food and feed. It is an important piece of legislation to be aware of as a or food business, followed by the MRISK or emerging risk. Is an F sa project to develop an emerging risk identification system or ERIS, providing tools for the detection of emerging risk. The project involves assessors from many European countries. And to give some more information, pumapaloob dito ang benzene. Benzene is a chemical that is colorless or lightly yellow liquid at room temperature. It has a sweet odor and highly flammable. Usually nakikita or nagpo-form siya sa mga soft drinks. Then another example dito ay yung T2 and HT2 toxins in food and feed. The mycotins T2 and HT2 belongs to group of trichoticins and are formed by fungi of the Fusarium species, usually found in agricultural products like oats, maize, barley, and wheat. Then, in terms of new production method, it is a process range from handling of a raw materials to the delivery of the final product. Then, use of benzoate, which can generate benzene as a preservative in soft drinks. Then, the microbial decontamination of plant product using chlorine, derivatives, or hypochlorite. Then, the irradiation of packaging materials by the gamma rays. And lastly, behavior of packaging materials in microwave ovens. Then, in terms of entry into the food chain of industrial chemical products and other substances, as a human, we are responsible for making sure that chemicals are not present in food at levels that would be of concern. We carry out research and surveillance, and using that information, we can enforce controls to prevent chemical contamination entering in the food chain. And here are the four substances under of it. The perfluorinated substances, polybrominated compounds, organotin compounds, and lastly, the phthalates. And when it comes to new or higher exposure to a known hazard, in terms of new exposure to a prohibited compound, or ito yung mga bagay or pagkain na hindi natin pwedeng pagsamahin sa iisang lugar dahil sa fraudulent use, accidental contamination of products, and environmental contamination. Kaya hindi natin pwedeng pagsamahin sa iisang lugar or sa iisang lalagyan yung dalawang bagay or dalawang pagkain na magkamuka. Kasi may times na baka malito tayo once na kailangan natin yung, halimbawa magtitimpla tayo ng kape. Tapos nasa iisang lalagyan lang yung iodized salt and yung sugar.
And yung nadampot mo yung iodized salt. Imagine ano na lang yung magiging reaction ng katawan natin or yung stomach natin once na yung nagamit mo pala yung iodized salt. Kaya, huwag nating ugaliing pagsamahin sa iisang lalagyan or sa iisang lugar yung mga bagay or mga pagkain na magkakamuka at malilito lang tayo at magkakos pa yun ng contamination or risk para sa atin. And for the higher exposure to a known hazards due to change in dietary habits and change in the level contaminants in a specific foods. Then for the unexpected exposure to a known danger due to contamination during the production process and cross-contamination. Halimbawa, nagpe-prepare ka ng pagkain, then bigla kang naubo. Of course, you're going to use your hand to cover your mouth. Or, hindi kaya, biglang hahawa ka sa isang bagay. Tapos, babalik ka sa pagpe-prepare nang hindi naguhugas ng kamay. Doon pa lang maaari ng may mga bakterya kang pwedeng mai-transfer doon sa pine-prepare mong pagkain. Kaya, ugaliin natin na maghugas ng kamay after or once na humawa ka ng isang bagay tapos magpe-prepare ka ng pagkain. Kaya, once na nagpe-prepare tayo ng pagkain, ugaliin nating maghugas ng kamay para maiwasan na natin yung mga food contamination. And for the classification of emerging chemical risk or ECR, these chemicals are concerned to human health that can reach human tissues via direct usage of consumer products or uptake via the environment and food. Most emerging chemicals are synthetic and are likely to significantly alter the metabolism of living being. And emerging chemical risk can be categorized as follows for clearer understanding. First is means of entry into the food chain. Under of it is natural toxins. Natural toxins are chemicals that are naturally produced by living organisms. These toxins are not harmful to the organisms mismo, pero sa ibang bagay, hayop, or lalo na sa ating mga tao, ay nakakapinsala ito lalo na sa mga pagkain at sa mga pagkain ating kinakain. And examples are plants, fungi, marine, bacteria, and etc. Next is the pesticides, medicines, unauthorized coloring agents, and additives. Next is the environmental contaminants like heavy metals, dioxins, PCB, brominated, and perfluorinated compounds o yung mga bagay na hindi agad nasisira. Then, last is the contaminants associated with processing, food preparation, and packaging. Second classification, the toxicological mode of action. There are carcinogens and genetic substances like aflatoxins, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, azoic colors, and etc. Also, the endocrine disruptors like medicines with hormonal effects, certain pesticides, and environmental contaminants. Also, the allergens and the other like nephrotoxic and hepatotoxic substances. So, the third classification is the type of risk. Type of risk is the acute risk and chronic risk. Acute risk means the potential for the contaminant or disinfectant residual to cause acute health effect, death, damage, or illness as a result of a single period of exposure of a duration measured in seconds, minutes, hours, or days. Examples are plants, toxins, psychotoxins, allergens, and etc. like marine algae in oysters. Then the chronic risk is hazard is one of that carries with the potential for cumulative long-term impact. Often, the effects of the hazards are hidden until they cause serious health complication. Examples are endocrine disruptors, carcinogens, products, bioaccumulating products, and etc. And for the fourth classification, type of factors that can influence the appearance of ECR or emerging chemical risk. first type is the agri-industrial factors. It changes in process involved in agricultural productions and food processing and preparation. Then, the soil amendments and fertilization like sewage sludge, calcium in phosphate, fertilizations, and etc. Then, the second type is the societal factors. It travels and craves for exotic natural products like food supplements made from exotic plants, spices, medicinal plants, consumptions of products that are less well known from the toxicological. And then the last type is the geoclimatic factors. It introduction of new fungal species as a result of climate change and great risk of productions of exotic mycotines.